Hey everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Cage, and today I wanted to make a video on how I restring my double locking floating trem guitars. And for the example, I have this 1991 Ibanez 540R LTD, which is a really cool guitar. It is the guitar that the Joe Satriani model Ibanez is based off of. And as you can see, I broke a string, so it's no better time to make this video than now. And I'm just going to show you the steps that I take when I'm changing strings on a double locking trem, especially a floating trem. And I think this could be a very useful video to anybody who's just stepping into the Floyd Rose or double locking trem realm. I'll try to make it relevant to not only the Ibanez players with the Edge style trems, but also original and Floyd Rose special players, because there's not a lot of differences between the tremolos. So yeah, follow along and I'll explain. All right, so the first thing I'd like to do when I'm going to go ahead and change strings on my tremolo is I'm going to try to get this thing pitched to where it will hold the bridge at a level position without the strings on. That'll make changing the strings a little bit easier, because if you let the tension drop all the way off, then you're going to encounter just a hard time getting that tremolo rebalanced. You might find it takes too long. The way I'm going to do it will hopefully not take that much longer than doing a regular restring. First thing I'm going to do is go ahead and get the strings or the bridge blocked off here. And I use a microfiber cloth, so it has a little bit of give. And with this trem here, it's a little bit different from the Floyd Rose, because with the Floyd Rose, you can just use your base plate as the level. But with Ibanez tremolos, it's a little bit different. So I don't know how well you'll be able to see the edge there. There is a small little line. If I could get in there. There's a little tiny line next to the trim, or next to the knife edge, and you'll see it on both sides with these Ibanez Edge and Low Pro tremolos. So that's a good way to find the balance point with these. But with a Floyd Rose or Floyd Rose Special, even the Goto tremolos, you'll just use the flatness of the base plate to guide how to level the bridge. So I've got mine pretty much set level. It might be a little bit give or take, but that's okay, because I don't need it perfect. And then from there, we'll go ahead and just get started with the standard procedure of unlocking the tremolo and everything. So with these low pro style tremolos, I think it is best to sticking with a traditional Allen key with the L instead of the straight, or like how I have my Music Nomad tool here. It's a really great tool, especially for Floyd originals, the Edge originals, with the higher profile. But for this, it can be a little bit hard to get past your fine tuner without scratching anything. So I suggest using just the Allen wrench that either the guitar came with, or just a traditional L. All right, and of course the first thing you're going to do when you're getting prepared to do your restring here is you're going to unlock your pressure pads up here. I try my best to not take them off. If I do take them off, it's only for a moment to get the string in, and then I replace it as immediately as possible. Of course, traditional peg winder is always good to have. And one thing that helps when you block your tremolo before you get started here is you're not going to build up extra tension on your higher strings, risking them to break and possibly cause injury or scratches to your instrument. And when I wind my strings down, I generally am going to go ahead and try to get the post hole facing down my nut. All right, and with the holes on the post now facing the nut and the string slack, I can go ahead and release the strings from the bridge. And you can take your trem arm off if you'd like. For what I'm doing now, I like to leave it on just in case I need to lift it. And this is why you're going to use that L style wrench, because there's that tuning, that fine tuner is right behind. Go ahead and pop those loose. And as you loosen them, take note of, how much pressure it takes to actually pull these off, or to get them loose, to break them free, I should say. And you'll notice that it's not going to take a lot of pressure, especially you got the guitar brand new out of box. This is your first restring. Take note of that, because you're not going to have to lock these down ultra hard at the end. All right, so I got my strings free from my bridge. And I generally just kind of cut them off up here at the headstock. Pull them through. Be careful restringing your guitar and taking your strings off. You might poke yourself a little bit, might bleed a little bit, but don't worry about it. Wash your hands just in case. I'm going to go ahead and put my strings on. So a big thing that you want to think about, if this is going to be your first time changing the strings, is try to stick with the same string gauge your guitar came with. Most guitars that have a double locking system, like a Jackson or Ibanez, LTD, any of these brands with a double locking system, they're usually going to come with 9 to 42 gauge strings. So that's what I would suggest that you stick with. And that's pretty standard for like Stratocaster and Telecaster, unless you're going to change your tuning. Usually what I will do if I'm changing tuning is basically for every whole step I'm going down, I'll do a string gauge up. And every player is going to have a different preference with that. But for me, that's what I like to do. So standard tuning, I just stick to 9 to 42 because that's what I've played forever and I really enjoy the feel. It's also not going to affect the setup of my guitar because that's what it would have come with. No telling how many setups this guitar has had in its lifetime, but it is currently set up for 9 to 42 gauge strings, so that's what I'm going to stick with. And one thing that I like to do with my own guitars here, changing strings, is I like to leave the ball ends on. When I do this, it creates a lock here at the string, or at the tuning peg, and it also makes it to where I only have to cut the string in one place, as well as prevents my guitar from cutting up like the inside of my gig bag. So that's something that always bothered me with like Strats and stuff, is cutting up the inside of my gig bag with the little sharp tips here at the headstock. So I put my ball end right up there and I feed the string backwards through it. When I cut the string, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take my string all the way to the fine tuner with this flat profile with a regular profile, I might take it back to the edge of the cavity or the edge of the locking screw. But for this one, I'm going to take it back to the tuner and just clip it. And then from there, I'll go ahead and lock this first string in place. All right. So when you snug up your strings here, you don't want to be too aggressive. I usually go till it's snug and then I push it just about an eighth to a quarter turn further to squish down the string a little bit. So I'm not like forcing into it, just putting a little bit of pressure to make sure it's locked. And then it's going to be pretty standard as far as stringing up how you would a regular guitar. Now I'm just going to go ahead and build some tension on my string. Now I've got my first string on, so I can move on to the A string. And again, I'm just going to show you here that I'm going to go ahead and put this end of the string through my tuning peg. And then I put a little bend in it to get it past the string tree. So I'll just go ahead and repeat this process for every string, making sure that when I seat my strings, they are centered in the saddle groove. So what you can see that I'm doing here is I'm just snugging up the wraps to make sure they go all the way up to the ball end to lock in place. When doing this method, you could even cut the string to right past the saddle and have it basically like a locking tuner where you just do a half a turn and you can get the string in tune. But I like to leave a little bit of extra string in case I break a string. I can go ahead and unwind some and pull it down to the saddle. Most of the time with these double locking trims, I tend to break the string at the saddle. And since I removed one locking pad, I put the other one back on just to ensure I don't mix them up. And the more that you do this, the quicker you're going to get at it. And as you can tell, it's not really taking too much more time than a standard string change. You'll probably be able to get this down to about 15 to 20 minutes for just a standard string change without. I've seen a lot of people make the mistake of removing the string tree that's right up here. Or they've messed with the height of it to get their strings under it. I'd highly suggest trying to avoid doing anything to mess with that height, because what that string tree actually does is let the string lay flat across the top of the nut, and that's going to give you increased tuning stability as compared to if the string is slightly suspended before it gets clamped down. If this is not low enough, then when you go to clamp your strings, they're going to end up becoming very sharp in pitch because of that extra movement. So this method here of restringing the guitar backwards also helps to get the string under the tree without having to remove it or adjust the height. As you can see, I still put a little bit of tension to hold the string as straight as it can as I wind it up. We'll go ahead and move on to our final string here. All right, so I get the guitar kind of somewhat in tune. And then from here, we've kind of got the hard part taken care of in a way. We're going to want to go ahead and get the guitar into playing position for this next part to make sure that we get everything dialed in so that it stays in tune and playing position. All right, so now we've got the guitar with its new strings, and it's time to go ahead and get this bad boy in tune. So what I'm going to be using here is my Helix LT with the strobe tuner function, which I'm going to change real quick. So if you don't know and you have one of these, there are different types of tuners. And I prefer the strobe for guitar stuff. So let's go ahead and get this bad boy all tuned up. And this is where we got it by just by ear. So it's a little bit out of tune, definitely pretty low. Let's see what we have it set at here. And so we're sitting around, it's a sharp D flat, so I'm a standard tuning person. So what I'm going to do here, now that I've got some tension on my tremolo actually, is I'm just going to pull my block out because it's pretty much level. I think once I tune up the guitar, we're going to be pretty set. So first thing you're going to do with your guitar, now that we've got some tension on the strings and the trem is kind of free floating, you're more than likely going to look at that, either the knife edge side, how I showed you with the edge tremolo, or your Floyd Rose, and you're going to see that it's going to be cocked back just slightly. And that's because the guitar, although I got it to about a half step with my strings blocked off, there's still not enough tension to carry it up to standard tuning. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and look at my fine tuners here at the bridge, and I'm going to take those fine tuners, if you can see, and I'm going to run the outside one all the way down, skip one, and run the second one over all the way up. And then I'll find the middle point. It looks like we're right about at the middle with that one anyway, with the center. So I'm just going to go ahead and match all of my tuners, all of my fine tuners, to those heights. It looks pretty good. Maybe a little further in. All right, so to me that looks fairly level. And now I can go ahead and actually start tuning the guitar. So basically, we're just going to tune the guitar how we normally would with our locking pads unlocked here. My string tree cracked into place. And because I took the towel out, it actually made the guitar sharpen up a little bit, so stretch out my strings. You still want to stretch your strings as well, just as you would with a Strat trem or fixed bridge. And you're going to have to do a couple of rounds of tuning as you do this. So what I've done is I've tuned the whole guitar up to pitch. Now I'm hopping back down to my low E string, which has gone flat because we're building that tension with the strings. A string is a little flat, D string a little bit flat. And so I'm just going to start rebuilding that tension with a couple times through on the tuning. And then after one or two times of getting the guitar up to pitch, I'm going to start going from the E string, then I'll tune the A string, then I'll come back down to the E string, then I will double check the A string, come up to the D string, then come back down to the E string, then double check the A string. So basically, I'm starting at the top and working my way forward while double backing to make sure everything's staying where it should be. Like the most important part about restringing one of these guitars, the most important bit of advice I have is just to be patient about it and to just keep being methodical, keep going back and forth, and then you're going to get that guitar in tune. And once you get it in tune, it's really going to stay where it belongs. Now, this guitar, I think, wants to go a little bit sharp on me from what I remember playing it the other day. So I'm just going to keep checking that tuning. And basically, after about 2 or 3 times going through the tuning, you're going to notice that it's holding very well. And say if the guitar is now going flat, sharp or flat, we might have to make some adjustments to our tremolo claw, which sometimes happens even if you stay with the same gauge, you switch brands or something, that can be the case. So I'm double checking my level here. It's looking pretty good. Trem is leveled. And it looks like my guitar still wants to be a little bit flat. So this is a good opportunity to see that, you know, even though that this has gone a little flat, we can just go ahead and take our Phillips head screwdriver. And because the whole guitar is pretty much flat, but the bridge is balanced, it looks like my D string's a little sharp, so I'm just going to stretch that down and see what that does to the rest of my strings. So it looks like we're still fairly flat. So we'll take a Phillips head screwdriver now and come to our tremolo cavity. And these are going to be very, very minute adjustments to get the guitar repitched in. And you're going to check all the strings when you do stuff like that, because it could be one string is still a little bit off, but the rest of them fell into where they needed to be. So you just want to be diligent and patient. Awesome. So now my guitar's in tune. The next step we're going to take to get this guitar ready to play again is we're just going to go ahead and lock down our pressure pads here at the nut. And with that, you want to kind of do the same practice as you did with the other ones. You're not going to go too hard. We're going to get it to right about snug. And then from there, just a little bit further to press those strings into place. So as you can see, I'm not like absolutely cranking it. Like I do like to kind of flatten my string just a hair. And now my guitar is going to go a couple cents sharp. And there we go. It's nice and in tune. So it does sound like the guitar may have gone slightly out of tune. Another thing to check, probably even before you put the new strings on, is actually how tight your locking nut is. So that's something I'm going to do real quick, and I'll show you how to do it. This one has the old school from the back locking nut. And a lot of modern guitars, you're going to find Phillips head screws on the face there. So generally, when I'm experiencing a guitar going out of tune a little bit while using the bar, it's because these are just a little bit loose. And I could hear a little bit of a click when I use the trem arm right now. So that tells me that these is probably a little loose, and they were just not quite snug. You want to definitely be careful and not to strip or over tighten those. And then just as a precaution, I'm going to go ahead and just snug up my neck joint as well. Go ahead and double check the tuning here. It looks like we got a little bit out of whack because I did the adjustments since I tightened down to the nut here, which I should have checked out before even locking it down. That did throw off our tremolo just a little bit, so go ahead. All right, so now you see that, well, I guess you can't really see it on the tuner, but now my guitar is going slightly sharp, and that I attribute to tightening up the neck a little bit, and as well as the locking nut here. So what I'm going to do is just back off the claw just a hair again. So I'm probably doing about a 30-second turn on that trim claw for getting the tuning adjustments. And then what I'm doing is, if any strings have gone flat, I'm just retuning them up to pitch. And then if anything's still sharp, then I'll take a little bit of tension off of these springs. So I find that with newer guitars, you're going to have to do less adjustments to these, but over time you might want to change your springs. Like this guitar here, I think these might be the original springs on it. So it's definitely taking a little bit of adjustment every couple of months or so to keep it holding tune really well. But if you have some nice brand new springs or get some nice high quality springs, it can make a big difference in that tuning stability. All right, now that we got that tension all adjusted, it definitely helped out quite a bit with getting it in tune off the fine tuners right off the bat. So now we're good to go. So this is actually a good example. I've never really had this happen before, but my locking pad here actually got cocked off to the side slightly, so it's not pressing my strings down all the way. So that's something to definitely pay attention to when you're doing these restrings. It's making sure everything is straight and mating up properly. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and break that free. Now it's seated nice and flat. We'll go back and retune it one more time. And that's why it's important to be patient with these locking trem systems, because you never know. You might run into like a little hiccup like that is more of a minor annoyance, but you also don't want to damage anything. Had I pushed that nut any further, there's potential that I could have stripped the nut or threads on the nut itself. So you just always want to be mindful of things like that and paying attention to things lining up, because at the end of the day, they're fairly delicate systems. Awesome. So we got it all tuned up again. Now you see the guitar is holding tune very nicely. All right, my camera turned off from overheating on that last portion. I just wanted to demonstrate to y'all that changing strings on a Floyd Rose is not the most difficult thing to do. Definitely something you're fully capable of as long as you have patience and take your time. I've been doing this for about 20 years, changing guitar strings on Floyd Roses and playing with Floyd Roses and double locking trims in general. And, I still had hiccups. So hopefully seeing that I had a couple of hiccups and had to figure a couple of things out along the way will make you, not get so frustrated when you go to do this for the first couple of times yourself. But now, guitar's holding tune really well, so it's ready to play. Thank you for watching. I hope this was helpful to anybody who might be starting out with the double locking trims or has used them but has struggled with their string changes. If you do have any questions, feel free to comment. I'm not the best at responding to comments, but I will try my best to keep up with them from here on out. Until next time, thank you very much, and we'll see you later.